All right, let's talk about one of the biggest questions for any developer diving into AI. How much is this actually going to cost me? Well, today we are pulling back the curtain and unpacking the costs of Google's Gemini API.
You know how it is. You get that brilliant idea for an app, or maybe a feature that you just know Gemini could absolutely nail. But then, that little voice creeps in, right? The one wondering what the bill's going to look like? It's a real concern, and honestly, it can stop amazing projects dead in their tracks. So that's what we're going to do right now. In the next few minutes, we're going to break it all down. The free stuff, the paid stuff, how tokens work, all of it. The goal here is simple, to help you stop worrying about the budget and start building with some real confidence. Okay, first things first. When you're getting started with Gemini, Google basically gives you two main doors to walk through. It really just depends on whether you're just kicking the tires or if you're building the next big thing. On one side, you've got the free tier. Think of this as your personal playground. It is perfect for building prototypes, learning how things work, and just figuring out if your idea has legs. The limits are a bit lower, sure, but it's more than enough to get you off the ground. Then, when you're ready to go big, you just flip a switch to pay as you go. And boom, you instantly get way higher limits and all the features you need for a production-ready app.
Now, before we can talk about any of the actual numbers, we have to talk about the basic currency of pretty much all large language models. And that currency, my friends, is the token.
So what in the world is a token? The easiest way to think about it is as a piece of a word. A pretty good rule of thumb is that 4 characters is about 1 token, or 100 tokens is about 75 words. But here's the most important part. Everything gets measured in tokens. Everything you send to the model and everything it sends back.
And this is a really critical point that sometimes trips people up. You get billed for 2 separate things. You have your input tokens, that's your prompt, your question, whatever you send to the model. And then you have your output tokens. That's the answer it generates for you. And as you're about to see, these 2 things almost always have different price tags.
Okay, so now that we're all on the same page about tokens, let's get into the models themselves. Because really, the model you choose is the single biggest lever you can pull when it comes to your final cost.
When you're picking a model, you're always making a strategic choice. It's a balancing act, right? A trade-off between raw power, sheer speed, and of course, cost. There is no best model, period. There's only the best model for the job you need to get done. And this right here makes that trade-off crystal clear. You've got Gemini 1.5 Pro, which is an absolute beast for complex tasks. Then you've got Gemini 1.5 Flash, which is built to be incredibly fast and efficient, and look at that price difference. It's huge. This tells you everything you need to know. Are you doing some super deep, complex analysis once an hour? Pro is probably your guy. But if you're building a chatbot that needs to answer thousands of users quickly and cheaply, well, Flash is a no-brainer. And hey, just when you thought you had it all figured out, it's not always about tokens. When you start playing with the creative models, the whole billing system changes. With Imagen, you're paying per image it creates for you. And for Veo, the video model, you're paying per second of video generated. So the lesson here is simple. Always check the pricing unit for the specific model you're using.
Okay, so you've picked your model, you understand how you're being charged. The next logical question is, how much can you actually use it at once? And that's where we get into rate limits.
Think of rate limits as the rules of the road for the API. They're there to make sure no single person can clog up the whole system, keeping it fast and reliable for everyone. The 2 big numbers you'll see are RPM, which is requests per minute, and TPM, tokens per minute. You have to stay under both.
So, how do you get more capacity? Well, Google has this really cool system where you basically level up as you grow. Everybody starts in the free tier. The second you enable billing, you're in Tier 1 with higher limits. Then, as your application gains traction and you start spending more on Google Cloud, you automatically level up to Tier 2 and Tier 3. It's designed to scale right along with your success.
And the difference between these tiers is, well, it's staggering. Just look at a model like Gemini 1.5 Flash. On the free tier, you get 10 requests every minute. That's pretty good for testing. But by the time you reach Tier 3, that number explodes to 10,000 requests per minute. That's a 1,000 times increase. The system is literally built to support you from a tiny weekend project all the way to a massive global application.
All right, we know the rules of the road. We know how to get into the fast lane. Now let's talk about driving smart. How can we actively, strategically lower our bill?
Let's start with a really big one. What if I told you there was a way to get a massive discount just for being patient? I'm talking about a 50% discount. That's what you get when you use batch mode. So if you have tasks that aren't super urgent, like, say, summarizing a bunch of documents overnight, you can submit them as a batch and literally cut your cost in half.
So, let's wrap up the top ways to spend smart. First, if you can wait, use batch mode for that incredible 50% off. Second, look into context caching, which is a great way to save money if you're sending big, repetitive prompts. And finally, the golden rule of all this. Always, always choose the smallest, fastest, cheapest model that can reliably get your job done. You know, don't use a sledgehammer to crack a nut.
When you boil it all down, it really comes back to this one simple but powerful idea: strategic alignment. The real key to controlling your Gemini API costs isn't just about spending less. It's about spending smarter. It's about precisely matching the model you pick, the tier you're in, and the tools you use directly to what your project actually needs.
So there you have it. The mystery is gone. The costs are decoded. You now have the map to navigate the pricing, to scale your app, and to optimize every dollar you spend. The only question left is the really exciting one. Now that you know the cost, what are you going to build?